Oh, you review them. Oh, yeah. Boker Tov, everybody. Good morning. Welcome. Today we are studying Veyodayta Moskva, the groundbreaking treatise of the Rebbe Rashab, Rabbi Shalom Ber Schneerson, delivered in 1897 in Moscow in the winter. And he taught this discourse, Veyodayta Moskva, which was known as not just an ordinary Torah teaching, but something that literally purified the air. It purified human consciousness as it revealed godliness in the place where godliness had never been before. Perhaps that's the reason why it's known as Veyodayta Moskva. You know, it's easy to Moscow. It's easy to reveal godliness in the shul. But how about in Wall Street, right? How about in Washington? It's like being called Veyodayta Washington, right? As if to say that this is bringing an awareness and a consciousness of a likus, of godliness, to the most novel place. Today's Torah study is lovingly sponsored by Jay and Stephanie Maamar, in memory of Stephanie's brother, Bert Stollerman. May his neshama be elevated in Gan Eden in the merit of the Torah study that we study today and continue to study. As people watch these videos over and over around the world, we have the most beautiful feedback from people around the world, and we're grateful to all of our students around the world, including Terry from Atlanta. I never met you, Terry, but we're close. Yeah, she doesn't come to shul much. Not to our shul. She goes to shul in Atlanta. Corey, of course. Today is an extraordinarily special day. It is the 10th day of Shvat. It is the anniversary of the passing of the previous Rebbe. That would be the son of the Rebbe Rashab, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, the sixth Rebbe. He was the one who moved the seat of Chabad Lubavitch from Russia to the United States, which was a very bold, gutsy, daring initiative. It was like in the spirit of Veyodayta Moskva. Up until that time, Chassidus was insulated in the shtetl, in the villages. I guess it was the Rebbe Rashab in this Maamar that brought Chassidus to the big cities. What a daring and bold move is to bring such divine consciousness to center stage. It's like bringing it to Broadway, right? Veyodayta Moskva, right? The Frierdiker Rebbe, the Rebbe Rashab's son, brought it to America as he established the seat of Chabad World Headquarters in Brooklyn, New York, in 770 Eastern Parkway. And he passed away 10 years after he came to America in 1950. On this day, which was a Shabbos back then, in 1951, the following year, on the anniversary of his passing, the Rebbe finally accepted the leadership of the worldwide movement, even though he very much did not want to do it. He was very reluctant and hesitant to do so, but he eventually accepted it, which means today is not only the yahrzeit of the previous Rebbe, it's also the beginning of the rule, of the reign of our Rebbe, the seventh Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who I can tell you has transformed my life. And many of you, I'm sure, by extension, through learning the teachings of the Rebbe. I mean, I'm just the shliach of the Rebbe. I'm just an emissary, an ambassador. That's what we are. A Chabad house is an embassy. And we're bringing the mothership to you through the embassy, through the Chabad house. So if you're able to feel inspired, connected to the Rebbe, to realize how this is not just another rabbi. This is the leader of our generation, the Moses of our generation, who really understood the soul and the nuance and the sensitivity of our needs and brought us to where we need to go. That is the anniversary of what today is. It's a very, very special day. So l'chaim to our Rebbe, l'chaim to us, l'chaim to the Rebbe's father-in-law, the predecessor, the previous Rebbe, our Rebbe's Rebbe, which is on all coming together on this extraordinary day. And I highly encourage everybody to take the opportunity today to actually write a letter to the Rebbe. How do you do that? You send a letter to the Rebbe's Ohel, to the Rebbe's burial site in New York. The Rebbe said about its predecessor, the previous Rebbe, that just because his body passed away, it doesn't mean anything. His soul is, on the contrary, yatir mi b'chayahu. It's more alive than... They're actually buried right next to each other, exactly. And I can tell you that if you would like to send a letter to the Rebbe's Ohel, you can do so by emailing ohel, that's OHEL, at ohelchabad.org. That's ohel at ohelchabad.org to send a letter telling the Rebbe not only bad news, but also good news, sharing with the Rebbe the good news of your divine consciousness, your higher awareness, your deepening of your spirituality, and thanking the Rebbe for that, and asking for a blessing, for bracha for you, for your family, for your children, for your material needs, your spiritual needs, your divine consciousness needs, right? Anything you need. a very special day. Anyways, with that, we're going to tie it all together today, hopefully, with a beautiful summary of everything.
Can I ask you a question first? Why do we say Tachanun today?
Why do we say Tachanun today?
Every time the Rabbi gets out of jail, we don't say it. Here's an important day, and we do say it.
Okay. So let me answer that question to you.
Thank you.
The answer is, just one quick second. Okay, the answer to that question, in my understanding, is a very nuanced question. 1 second. I'm sorry, somebody just needs something from me. Here. Okay. Why do we say Tachanun today? We say it's Chassidim that it's totally behergish. It depends on your personal feeling. Depends on your personal feelings. What is Tachanun? Tachanun means supplications, right? It means confessions, right? We don't say a confession on a day which is extraordinarily joyous, like a wedding. The question is, where are you holding personally? Do you feel the magnitude of the day? If you personally feel it, I say to you, don't say Tachanun. For the minyan, maybe our minyan might not be ready to, I would say this. How about I put it to you this way? When the time comes that our community is able to gather together to mark, when our minyan can gather together to mark an important day in the calendar with the farbrengen, where we sit around the table, we have l'chaim, we have some food, and we farbreng. We go through the meditative experience, the immersive experience of discussing the consciousness of Chassidus that we're studying as it relates to that particular date. I would say that at that point, if we took the time to experience the farbrengen, then maybe you shouldn't say the Tachanun. But if you have not had a farbrengen, then maybe it's not that important to us as a collective. And maybe the collective should say the Tachanun, but as an individual, feel free not to say it. Anyways, let's get back into the Maamar. So here we're holding. So. Oh, okay. This is what we're holding. What we're about to do is really summarize a lot of what we've learned so far. Now, we've spent a lot of time talking, but my speech is nothing compared to the gold, which is the words of the Rabbi Rashab. Now, we're going to be reading the translation, admittedly, but in the words of the Rabbi Rashab, it's unbelievable. Now, my role is to guide you, to bring you through the museum, right? The role of the curator is to describe to you what we're about to see and then to show it to you, right? So I've done a lot of talking. I've explained to you over the past 29 lessons. Hi, Melissa and Elaine. I've explained to you over the 29 lessons about where we're going, right? And being careful through the process to read it inside. So let's take a look in the next piece, which really is going to tie it together in a very beautiful way. What we're going to be discussing is why Hashem needs to shield the great light. I mean, remember the fulcrum metaphor was a teacher to a student. Mentor-mentee relationship is the greatest analogy to the relationship between Hashem and humanity. So when a teacher says something simple, he says it straightforward. When a teacher says something profound, he has to shield it in a metaphor. So too, when Hashem gives us ordinary blessings, he does it straightforward in a way that we can appreciate. When Hashem gives us extraordinary blessings, he does it in a way that we don't understand, that we can't relate to, and that's why it looks like it's bad. It's hidden good, much like a grandfather will go to his grandchild's preschool graduation, and to all the children he'll give them lollipops, but to his grandchild he'll give him an envelope. Right? So all the kids will say, "You got such a cool grandfather." Right. But to the grandchild will be crying to his mommy, "Their granddad hates me because I didn't get a lollipop. I got an envelope." Right? I mean, I think it's a very good analogy. This is very, very good analogy, because now the envelope happens to be a prepaid college fund. Right? So, I mean, what he doesn't realize is that this is so much greater. You can't even begin to understand what kind of gift I'm giving you. It's pretty good, right? So thank you. So the point is that when Hashem gives us revealed good, it means that, you're getting lollipops, you're getting ordinary blessings. But when you're getting extraordinary blessings, it's going to be hidden. You won't necessarily appreciate it. You got to be able to have higher consciousness, to halt cup, as we say in Yiddish, to hold your head and not lose yourself in the klippa, which is the perception. and be able to see what lies beneath, which is the presence of Havaya. And that's what we're going to talk about, and we're going to sort of summarize that in the words of the Rebbe Rashab. Yeah.
But when Mashiach comes, hidden good will be revealed.
Oh, when Mashiach comes. And this is the Rebbe's cry. Andy Siegelstein, good morning. Thank you, Andy. I so appreciate it. By the way, I just want you to know, before I get to your point, Money, I am about to publish this discourse, guys. And you all, my students, my partners, have helped me through this process by being able to verbalize it to you and hearing your critical feedback. I'm so grateful to you for helping me through this process. I'm publishing it. It's a monumental task for me as a rabbi who's got a full-time job and very little time to be an author. But I am writing it. If anybody would like to review my writings, Terry, Elaine is already working on it. But if anybody would like to review my writings, we are planning on sending it to print next week. I will be happy to give you commenting status on the master document so that you can give me your feedback. The more people, the merrier. Kind of enough reviews. If you can give me your comments, just read through the manuscript. We'll summarize the whole Maamar. If you can give me your comments, I would so appreciate that, to be able to hear whether it's grammatical, is your skill is in grammar, or is in punctuation, or the em dash, or apostrophes, or if it's in content or flow or sequencing or developing an idea, or maybe you can give me an idea as to how to express something in a better way. I would so appreciate that. So please send me an email or text. Let me know if you would like me to share with you the status of this document as a commenting status, and you can review it for me if you would like to do that. I'd very much appreciate it. Good. So sorry, what do you say, Marty? Oh, so when Mashiach comes, this is the Rebbe's battle cry. The Rebbe said, look, Hashem, we appreciate it. We appreciate the revealed good. And you know what? The hidden good, thank you. But how about if we can get the best of both worlds? How about you give us the greater good, which is the hidden good? But you do it in a way that we can also appreciate it. How do you do that? It's an interesting question. There's a fantastic story in the Talmud, which is like bizarre tale in the Talmud. I'll tell you just in brief, okay? There was Rabbi and Rab Zera, and they had a Purim party together. Rabbi invited Rab Zera to a Purim party. So they came to the Purim party. They got drunk. Rabbi slaughtered Rab Zera. He killed him. Not very nice. Yeah, very nice. Okay, he killed him. Then the next morning, what did you say? He did die. The next morning, he noticed he was dead. So Rabbi revived him and brought him back to life. And what he did then was he sent him home. The next year, guess what happened? Rabbi invites Rab Zera. He says, why don't we do Purim together? What would you say?
See you next year.
Hasta la vista, right? Says Rab Zera to Rabbi, he says, I would love to come. But not always a miracle happens. This is an amazing story. Not always a miracle happens. What kind of answer is that? Like what? I don't mind dying, but I can't be sure that you're going to be able to do the resurrection. Like what? Like, I'm okay with dying. It doesn't bother me to die. But I'm not sure that you can do the back end. Is the food that good? Like what? It's worth dying for. So this is a story. You read it in the Talmud. It's like, what on earth is the story going on about? It's the only explanation I've ever seen that explains this is oh, Andy, thank you so much for being willing to review it. I will add you to the as soon as I finish here, I'll add you to the manuscript. Good morning, Stephanie. We mentioned that you are the sponsor of Taste Torah Study, you and Jay, in honor of your brother Bert Stollerman, who's neshama we're elevating today in the proximity of his yahrzeit. Thank you, and I'm sure that Bert is here with us studying Torah. So my point is that so the Rebbe explains that story of it was a Purim story. The Rebbe explains like this: Rabba and Rab Zera. Rabba means great. Rab Zera means small in Aramaic. Rabba means great. Zera means small. Rabba had huge consciousness capacity. Rab Zera was smaller, relatively speaking, consciousness capacity, right? Rabbi invites Rab Zera to a Purim party. What happens at a Purim party? They got drunk. What does it mean they get drunk? They don't get drunk for the sake of getting drunk like in an English pub, right? They got drunk with nichnas yain yatsa soid. When wine enters the sea, the secrets emerge. Imagine when a great Kabbalist drinks wine. You know what happens? He starts letting loose the secrets of wisdom that he normally would filter to the student. Now it was like the damn walls let loose. And what happens to Rab Zera? When Rabbi, the great consciousness, shares with a smaller consciousness all of his wisdom, he just expired. That's what we're about to learn right now. Not this story, but it's a great story to incorporate. I can write that down in my notes. So that's what happens here is that he literally blew him away, right? And he literally expired. Who else died in this manner? Aaron. The Jewish people on Mount Sinai, right?
They all died.
At Mount Sinai, what happened? There was too much revelation. God said the first commandment. Moses brings them back to life. Second commandment. By the time the third commandment came back, they said, Moses, how about you take the microphone? You know what I mean? Don't blow it away. You're literally blowing us away, right? So another time it happened, by the way, was when the four sons of Aaron, right? There were Aaron and four sons. Two of them, Nadav and Avihu, entered unauthorized into the Holy of Holies, a place that why was it unauthorized? Not because of hazmat. Well, it was hazmat, I guess. It was spiritual hazmat. It was hazardous material. It was too much for you to process. And they said, we want it. They went in. They died. Their souls literally emerged. It came out of their nostrils. They died. They dropped dead. This is what happened to Rav Zera. There was too much of a revelation of godliness, which is what this Maamar is saying, that the teacher will filter for the student. Okay, so how did he bring him back? In the same way that there are certain individuals in Jewish history that have had the gift of resurrection of the dead. There was Elijah the prophet did one resurrection of the dead. Elisha did two. Moses of Mount Sinai did the resurrection of the dead. Ezekiel in the valley of dry bones. I mean, there's certain individuals. Let me put it this way: you either got it or you don't. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I don't want to try it out.
You might have it. Gates of trust, man. Tracht gut wird sein gut. That'd be good. A nice one, right? But anyways, so what happens? So this is the story of what happens. Now we finally understand the story in context, right? But it's only with Veyodayta that you can really understand that story. Now comes the next year. And Rabbi invites Rabbi Zera back to the party. The party party. It's the Purim again. We finally understand the question. Why would he invite him to Purim? What are you a murderer? Like what? So he invited him back because he figured a year later, Rabbi Zera had the opportunity to exercise and expand his consciousness, and now you might be ready for my Purim party. That's what he figured. That's why I invited him. Rabbi Zera was like, look, I'd love to try, but I'm not sure. I'm a little nervous. I'm nervous. I don't know if I have the right vessels. So that's why I declined. He says, I don't mind trying it, but just in case I expire again, you're not allowed to rely on miracles. Right? So the story actually makes sense. It falls into context, right? Let's take a look at this idea in the words of the Rebbe Rashab. Now, that whole story, by the way, was my own. This is the kind of stuff that I put into the manuscript to explain. Elucidation. Exactly. That's what I do. Actually, it's amazing, by the way. I went to a Farbrengen last night. A Farbrengen in Chabad Boker Raton. It's Yud Shvat, I mentioned before Farbrengen. There was a Farbrengen in Chabad Boker Raton. I went over with Rabbi Uzvald. We were sitting down. There's one of the great minds of Chassidus today. His name is Rabbi Michal Zeligson. If you saw the Friday video, Dr. Zeligson on the Friday video this week, the Rebbe's doctor, we spoke about him. He was like an unbelievable, but this is his son. His son is one of the whenever I have a question in Chassidus, I turn to Michal Zeligson. Question anything, I turn. The guy knows Chassidus like the back of his hand. It's unbelievable. So he was Farbrengen. What does he talk about? He spoke about how the Rebbe spoke about the value and importance and urgency of people publishing books about Chassidus. And I'm like, I was sitting right next to him. I'm like, and he goes on and on how important it was to the Rebbe and every detail. And I want updates. And are you working fast enough? Are you working hard enough? Don't miss the due dates. Make it in time. It's important. And he even said, and Rabbi Uzvald repeated it to me this morning, that the Rebbe said that every time that a book of Torah is Chassidus is published, it cancels out a book on the other side. A book of Sitrach or a book of Klippa. Can you imagine if like a Darwin or some sort of like a terrible, like an unorthodox, right? Imagine you cancel out like all the negativity associated with such a film or a book. Imagine, how that works. It's like obviously a spiritual concept. So I actually turned to him and I said, are you referring to like publishing the original text, like the original text republishing, or elucidations of the original text? He said, all of it. Anything. I'm like, wow. Okay, great. So again, if anybody here is able to help me with reviewing the manuscript, please just let me know, and I would love to share with you the document. So let's take a look at this in the words of the Rebbe Rashab. I'm on page 35 in the book, To Know God. If you have the book, that's great. If you don't have the book, then it's available free online. Winston always shares it with us, To Know God. And let's look at this idea in the words of the Rebbe Rashab. The concept can be explained as follows, page 35. Middle of the page. As explained above, it is impossible for an entity that sees itself as independent from God, a yesh. Yesh means an ego, to come into existence from the name Havaya, as it exists in its own right. What that means is something that was created by Havaya, which is Havaya, Hashem's infinite light, cannot reach the point that it feels independently egotistical. Something which comes from the light of Hashem will forever feel humble before Hashem, will always recognize its source. So how then do we have a sense of ego? For were the light of the name Havaya to shine forth without any concealment, the worlds would not be able to receive this light, i.e., there would be no conception of limited and independent existence. That's what it means. The worlds would not be able to receive this light. The world, the definition of world means concealment, by the way, in Hebrew. Olam he'elem, it's the same word. World and concealment is the same word. So there would be no concealment of the light. If the light was infinitely shining, there'd be no concealment of the light. You would completely recognize the hand that feeds you. And you as a mortal would say, I am a manifestation of godliness. I'm part of the light of Hashem's infinity, right? You would recognize yourself. So how then do we have an ego? If we created by Havaya, we talked about the doctrine of perpetual creation. Havaya creates us at every single moment in time. So how do I have an ego? How am I a yesh? To refer to the analogy of communicating an idea mentioned above, were the teacher to reveal his essential conception of the idea as it is for himself. If Einstein walks into 6th grade and he starts sharing the ideas of relativity the way he understands it in his own mind, what's going to happen? He's going to blow those kids away. The makabel, the student, could not accept it. Indeed, his thinking processes would become totally confused. The student will be just blown away. This represents a nullification of his vessels, as is well known. So just like when Einstein would reveal his own understanding of relativity to the 6th graders, he'd blow them away. They would have no sense of ego. It would all be his wisdom in the room and nobody else's. So too, if Havaya was to reveal his light unshielded, undisguised, unmasked, there would be only the presence of Havaya. There would be no ego. There would be no sense of self or narcissism or self-centeredness. We'd all be extensions of Havaya. Let me just describe what that kind of world would look like. So imagine we lived in a world where the light of Havaya was shining. Then there would be no ego, no competition, no war, no jealousy, no envy. You'd look at a fellow Jew and say, my brother, I love you. Can I pay your bill for you? You know, there's a comedian, he says, I think his name's Michael McIntyre. He says, you know, when you call to pay your bill to Verizon or something, I'm calling to pay my bill, okay. We need to confirm your identity. Give us the last 4 digits of your social security number, whatever, they confirm your identity. And he says, hello, I'm trying to pay my bill. If somebody else is trying to pay my bill, please let him go right ahead. Like, why do we need to verify my identity? Let the bill be paid. I'll be very happy, right? So in a world like that, where there would be no ego, there would be no sense of self, mine. I believe there's an island off the Indian Ocean. Maybe Winston in Jakarta knows where this is. I think it's called Sumatra, maybe. I think I read somewhere that there is no word for possession over there. These guys, I think they live they don't have any contact with the outside world. Whenever people come from boats outside, they attack them. They literally kill any outsiders. They live there for the past 4,000 years. They have no contact with the outside world. They live like the way they've lived for thousands of years. There's no internet. There's no pens and paper. There's nothing. They just completely isolated in the middle of the Indian Ocean. No Netflix, nothing. And anybody who ever tries to go there, you see these videos on YouTube, these little boats coming up there, and they send these Amazons out to kill them, So nobody goes close, I guess satellite imagery they get. But one of these kind of islands, they have this language over there, and there's no word for possession. There's no mind. Everything is communal. So in such a world, everybody is one. Just like I'm not intimidated. If my hand wants to eat a cookie, I don't say, don't be selfish. I'm like, this is me, my hand, selfish, right? It's like when we spoke about the hand covering over the head. Right, it's my hand. I'm not hiding me right now because you're looking at me right now. You're looking at me. This is me hiding over me, so it's me, all me, right? That's the way the world would look if Havaya was shining unshielded. And by the way, that's what's going to happen when Mashiach comes. That's what the prophets tell us. There will be no more concealment hiding over you, right? There will be no more. there will be no more concealment of Havaya. That's why there's not going to be any more war, ego, competition, strife, battle. Everybody will just be there to helping each other. But now, in this time of exile, what does exile mean? What does exile mean? Exile on a literal level means that we've been banished from our land. But we also know that Hashem is with us in exile. What does it mean Hashem is with us in exile? What, somebody exiled Hashem? Who exiled Hashem? Self-imposed. How did he self-impose the exile? He expelled himself from this world, from this consciousness. How did he do that? Through the mask, the disguise, the veil of Elohim, right? That's what he's been doing through the veil of Mother Nature. He's hidden himself. That's why Hashem is in exile. The end of exile is the removal of the mask when Hashem shines supreme. So why do we have an ego we're about to learn is because we come through the name of I, through the disguise of Elohim. So remember, when you look at the one-way mirror, you see yourself. The people on the other side, they see straight through the glass. So Havaya sees straight through the glass. The glass is just a glass. It's a window. But for us, we look at the glass and we just see a mirror. We see ourselves. And that's the self-concealment that Hashem created to hide his presence from us. Go ahead.
But if Hashem, Havaya doesn't mask himself any longer, why wouldn't we all expire?
Oh, because after. So why wouldn't we expire when Havaya doesn't unmask himself? It's a brilliant question. The answer is, man, I love these questions. The answer is because just like Rabbi Zera and Rabbi, a year later, Rabbi said, no, are you ready? After 3,331 years of trying, we will have reached that ability to endure. Tanya chapter 36 makes it very clear. It says the way we do it, how were they resurrected, you asked before, right? So it says that by Mount Sinai, it says that he gave them the dew of resurrection. What's the dew of resurrection? Torah. That's what it is, Torah. When Torah is filtered into your consciousness, then what happens is that you become one with infinity. Tanya chapter 5 and chapter 2 tells us that Hashem and his wisdom are one. Hashem and his Torah are one. So when you study Torah, you have infinity inside of you. You're one with infinity. If you have no Torah, you have no infinity. You have no sunscreen to endure. But when you have Torah, you have sunscreen to endure. When we study this concept, your comfort with Havaya and Elohim incorporated into your lexicon is the endurance and tolerance that will allow you to bask in the radiance of Havaya. However, I'm only going to pause it now. That just like when you go to the orchestra, to the ballet or whatever, there's the front row seats, and then there's the people in the nosebleed section. The people in the front row, the people that have incorporated this consciousness into their minds, they're able to endure the light. You can only come as close as you can without getting burned. So I imagine there's going to be people that are going to be 4 miles away because they're not ready. They're a little bit there, but they're not fully there. When we teach this class on YouTube, we're literally illuminating YouTube. It's like Veyodayta YouTube, Veyodayta Moscow. We're bringing the consciousness to YouTube. You see what I'm saying? I hope that answers your question. Let's go a little further. Similarly, in the analog, what? Sunglasses, exactly. Similarly, everybody else is like this, and you got the sunglasses, right? Similarly, in the analog, in the spiritual realms, we're going to the analog now. From the analogy of the teacher and the student, we're going to the analog of Havaya and Elohim. Were the light of the essence of the name Havaya. Infinity to be revealed, the world could not exist as a yesh, as an ego. Thus, the Yetz Chaim states, Arizal states, quote, at the outset, when there was a simple, sublime light encompassing all existence, there was no place to establish the worlds. Look at that line. This is from the Arizal. At the outset, in the beginning of creation, when there was no place, when there was a simple, sublime light encompassing all existence. What does encompassing all existence mean? It's infinite. It's not custom. It's one size fits all. It's infinite. That's Havaya. Then there was no place to establish the world. There's no place for world. World means concealment. World means ego, right? There was no place for ego. The expression there was no place does not refer to physical place, but rather to concept. To the concept that the revelation of the simple sublime light as it existed for itself prevented the existence of the limited world with ego. This is possible only, how do we create worlds? Only through the medium of the name Elohim. Only through the concealment of Havaya, through the medium of Elohim. as reflected in the verse in the beginning. Who created the world? Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'haaretz. You want a world, you'll need to hide the light. Elokim. Elokim's got to be there to hide the light.
The only problem I have with that is Adam and Eve, before the eating of the tree, he had no ego.
Who had no ego? Adam and Eve?
Adam and Eve before they ate.
Okay, so what's wrong?
Right?
Okay.
So you say Elohim created the world, which obviously it did.
Okay, but he was the son of God. He was the son of God, which means then the soul within him, Tanya chapter 2, the soul is blown into him. So it comes from God's essence. Because the soul was blown into him, it comes from the inside, the kishkis of Hashem, so to speak, the inwardness, the essence. Therefore, his soul, his consciousness came from Hashem's essence. He was just created. Obviously, he had no ego. The problem was through the sin of being expelled from the Garden of Eden. That's when that consciousness became concealed, right? So that's why in the beginning they had no self-awareness, they had no shame, they were naked. But the moment that they sinned, they became self-aware. Ego, consciousness.
Is not in the same sentence Adam and Eve.
You're saying why is it not there?
Just for Adam and Eve before the eating of the tree, and then.
Well, I think it is there. Because I'll tell you why. When they spoke to Hashem, I'm pretty sure that it was the word Havaya that was speaking to them. As I discussed yesterday, and I answered yours and Corey's questions, that there were different levels of Havaya. Right, it wasn't the Havaya of Moses after the suffering of the slavery in Egypt. It was the Havaya of creation. There was an element of Havaya of creation, but not a Havaya of deeper consciousness. Let's just finish this up. This is possible only through the medium of the name Elokim, as reflected in the verse in the beginning. Elokim created, because Elokim represents the attribute of self-limitation and concealment, which limits the light of the name Havaya, enclothing it in several garments until an existence, which is an ego, which is a yesh, can come into being. Okay, I'm going to stop here because here we're going to start a whole new concept of astrology. So that's going to be a whole discussion. But let's leave it over here. A beautiful discussion. And we see Corey's question. When Mashiach comes, he brings change to the whole world. Does that mean that those not learning Torah will expire from Havaya's light? Potentially. They might not expire, but they might feel the need to sort of, stay indoors until they can build up the endurance, potentially. Or maybe in a previous lifetime, they've already built up that Torah guard, and now they're waiting for the rest of us, like you and me, to build up our divine consciousness through Torah study, and because they already have it from a previous lifetime. All right, guys, an elevation to the soul of Bert Stolman. That's Jay and Stephanie Marmar's brother, whose Torah study today is dedicated in his honor, and an elevation of his soul. Thank you to the Maamars. Today's Yud Shvat, the 10th day of Shvat. Don't forget to write a letter to the Ohel, to the Rebbe, for a blessing. And also, if you would like to review the manuscript of Veyodayta Moskva that I wrote, in order to help me refine and correct it with any mistakes, I would really appreciate it. Just send me an email or a text. Let me know that you would like me to add you to the commentating status of the list. Thank you very much, everybody. Shalom, and have a wonderful day.